First meeting since the end of June. So we've had a lovely break. So welcome back to members of council. You all look well rested. So I look forward to tonight. So thank you for everyone for being here. It's great to have such a good turnout here this evening, and to staff and members of the public and those that are watching on live stream. We have had some power disruptions this evening, so if you do lose our live stream, that could be why. And if that happens, we'll have to take a short break to get things all tuned up again. But thank you for your patience. I will tell you that tonight's meeting is being audio, video recorded, and live streamed on the Town of Innisfil's YouTube channel and shall form part of the record, which will be retained in accordance with the town's Freedom of Retention bylaw. And for more information about that bylaw, you can contact the clerk's office. And I would now ask that Alex Water would please deliver our land acknowledgement. Councillor Waters.
The town of Innisfil acknowledges that Innisfil is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. The town acknowledges that this land is traditional territories of the first people of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe peoples of Beaujolais First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for their generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have this opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committing moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect for all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit.
Thank you so much, Councillor Waters. And one more housekeeping issue. If anybody has their cell phone like me and forgot to put it on silent, you might want to do that now just so it doesn't interrupt our proceedings. Thank you very much for that. And now we'll go right into item 2, which is our open forum. Open forum is the opportunity to speak on any of the agenda items, and we'd ask you to keep your remarks, please, to 2 minutes. So the first person speaking this evening on open forum is Ash King, speaking on agenda item C12, and that's to demolish a listed property.
Hi, how are you? I was hoping to get the approval of the council to be able to delist 3523 25th Side Road for a subdivision plan that we're proposing.
That's it?
Yeah.
Well, that was well under 2 minutes.
I have 2 minutes. I probably have some more time. I've gone ahead and have all my consultants prepare my reports. After the end of August, we're planning to have another meeting with the city. I have services, I have water, and I've also, just a side note, I've got a clearance on my archaeological report, and all my other reports are sufficient for the subdivision, and I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. King. So that item will come up later in the agenda, and there may be some discussion on that debate amongst members of council at that time. Thank you for being here. Next, I have Amin Sarong. No, I don't have any. No comments tonight? Okay, thank you. Next is item 3, David Rose, and it's regarding item C1, which is Old Highway 11.
Yeah, Mayor and councillors, thank you for giving me a couple minutes. It seems like this decision is being viewed in a vacuum, and I think it really needs to be viewed holistically. If you look at the location of the property and the old Highway 11 site, the voice of the county doesn't appear to be being heard. If you look to the south of Fennel's Corners, they've expropriated at least 10 meters on each side of the road. My wife and I own the farm property across from Old Highway 11. We've had 10 meters expropriated on most of our property, and it goes up to 18.5 meters on our boundary with Cal Farms Limited. It seems to me that the county is very veiled about their expropriation process. They try to surprise landowners when we all know it's coming. They're going to be widening the highway. I have an alternate proposal that you might consider. We're going to need a work yard. If you look down where the Bradford bypass is being constructed right now, there's a large work yard between the 8th and 9th line. There'll be a work yard required for some of the construction around the intersection at Highway 89. You've got a piece of property with road access, a public road on the back that could be converted into a work yard if the county and perhaps the township worked together and made a deal with the existing landowner. And if we're going to have hikers and bikers and so on using the highway, sometime down the road we might want to have washrooms and picnic facilities and so on for them. That's the site itself is a difficult site to turn into a kind of multiplex restaurant like the proponent has put forward. It's low, the Kell drain goes through it. I don't remember Hurricane Hazel, but in 1954 that area flooded pretty badly and water is an issue in that location. Why not buy the poor guy out, convert it into parkland and working land for the municipality and have it as a site that everybody can use in future? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose, also known as Mr. Campbell sometimes when I get your name wrong here. Next would be Barb Kelrose, and again, it's item C1.
Good evening. My comments were just, it's more of a question that I put in a letter in June 22nd, so maybe it was going to be addressed this evening already. And it has to do with the county expropriation. The staff report indicated that it appeared that the widening will occur on the west side of Yonge Street, which would be our farm, and that has already been expropriated. And I just asked for written confirmation from the county about this section of land because I do find it very difficult to believe they would only take from one side when we witness what's going on in Churchill right now, and you know, it would make sense they would take from both sides of the road. So I was asking for written confirmation, and who did they speak to at the county? The staff report sounds very vague to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and perhaps when we get to that item, C1, maybe someone will be able to address that question. Thank you, and that was the end of our open forum for this evening. So we will now go to item 3, which is the approval of the agenda. And we have had 3 delegations added to tonight's agenda. And I'd ask for a mover and a seconder, please, to approve that. Would be Councillor Drodge and Councillor Richardson. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, we'll go to item 4, which is the opportunity for any member of council to disclose any pecuniary or conflict of interest on any item on tonight's agenda. Seeing none, if one becomes apparent to you through our discussions, please make it known at that time. Next is item number 5, and that is presentations and petitions. And we actually do have a couple of presentations here tonight. So earlier this year, it was actually June the 19th, the province of Ontario recognized the outstanding contributions of some members of our community with the Volunteer Service Awards. So on behalf of Minister Mike Ford, I'm delighted to announce that 6 awards were presented within our community. And the honorees from our Youth Connects Committee were honored. We have Aisha Aknad, Davina Masura, Laki Gonsalia, Lauren Ibragimova, and Reese Fritz. And in addition, we're proud of a longtime volunteer, Merlene Boken, who received special recognition as well. So in June, the ceremony was held at Liberty North in Barrie. Unfortunately, both Davina and Merlene couldn't attend that evening. So tonight, we're honored to have them here to receive their awards. And I'll meet you up front. So we'll start with the youth. We're very, very honored and fortunate in Innisfil to have our Youth Connects Committee, which is very active in our community. And the province of Ontario is recognizing specifically youth that volunteer in their committee. And so Davina, we're very, very pleased to offer you your Youth Service Award for 2024.
I would just like to say thank you for the award. It's really generous on behalf of Innisfil, and that my volunteer years in Innisfil, because I've been volunteering since grade 9, taught me an invaluable amount of things, and I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to do what I did in our community.
Thank you. Thank you. And Merlene Boken, no stranger to anyone in this room. Merlene, I hate to say how many years, because you must have started volunteering very young. Okay, of course. So Merlene is being honored for 30 years of volunteer service in the town of Innisfil. Congratulations and thank you.
I just want to say thank you to everyone in the town and all the people of the town, because if it wasn't for all of you and the support of the town, we wouldn't be able to do what we do, looking after the children in Innisfil. So thank you very much to everybody for all your support over all these years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Merlene. I can't believe you didn't take the opportunity to plug the fact that you can donate your backpacks right out here in the hallway for the Back to School program for community. So anybody who would like to make a donation, there is an opportunity to do so to make sure that kids go back to school with their backpacks full this school season. And could I please have a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the delegations? Moved by Deputy Mayor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Zanella. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, we have delegations by members of the public. And our first delegation this evening is from one of our advisory committees, the Electoral Engagement Advisory Committee. And we'd like to welcome them up to the podium to give us an update on all of the work that they're doing.
Excellent. Okay, thanks. We're going to be covering why we're here, what the EEAC has been up to, and what we're like to accomplish as a team and community going into the 2026 municipal election. There is a growing downward trend in voting across Canada, and we're seeing it in Innisfil as well. As many of you know, the 2022 municipal election only saw about a quarter of Innisfil residents vote. Voter turnout has decreased by about 8% in Innisfil each election since 2014, from 40% in 2014 to 32% in 2018 to 24% in 2022. In Ontario, the voting average was the lowest it has been since the Association of Municipalities of Ontario began collecting data in 1982 at 36.30%. In the 2022 municipal election in Innisfil, people could vote online or by telephone. Those who needed help voting or didn't have access to a device could vote at one of the in-person voter help centers across town during the 10-day voting period. These were held at places like Sandy Cove Acres, Friday Harbor, Town Hall, the Innisfil Ideal Lab, and library branches. We know that there's an opportunity to better engage voters in the 2026 municipal election. The clerk's team is working to implement changes, including a more accurate voters list as Elections Ontario has taken it over for MPAC, the ward boundary review, council compensation review to attract more candidates and have more competitive election races, and then this committee, Electoral Engagement Advisory Committee. We volunteered to be part of the committee in 2023. Our mandate is to review how the town engages with its residents concerning municipal elections and bring forward recommendations to council to more effective ways to educate, encourage, and enable voter and candidate participation in municipal elections. I'm now going to hand it over to our Vice Chair, Dana, who's going to talk more about the work we've done so far.
Thanks, Steve. So one of the first initiatives that the committee undertook was to survey residents about voter behavior and to find out barriers to voting in the municipal election. People could take this survey online or in person, and our committee also popped up around the community, such as Sandy Cove's Health and Wellness Fair. From the responses, 3 key themes emerged. The first was that we need to reinvigorate interest in local government. We heard a lot of voter apathy and distrust at all levels. Number 2, we wanted to bolster candidate participation. So we needed to have people express that they wanted a better quality and quantity of local candidates, and that those candidates needed to do a better job of reaching out to voters and getting their information out there. And number 3 was to explore our voting methods. People had mixed reviews on the voting methods in 2022. Some residents liked online voting because they own seasonal property or they couldn't make in-person voting work, while others expressed that they don't trust online voting or it's not accessible to them. In addition to our work, Clerk Services will present options and alternatives for the voting methods to this committee and council in late 2025. I'm now going to pass it on to Karen to talk about our engagement plan.
Based on the survey results, let me see if I can get this, there we go. Based on the survey results and other data, the EEAC began brainstorming ideas of what we could do to help tackle these problems. An engagement plan was developed from that long list of initiatives. One was increase voter turnout to at least 2018 levels. 2 was improve the candidate selection that multiple candidates run for all positions. And 3, enhance voters' knowledge of local government and municipal elections. The plan provided to you includes full information, but some initiatives are already ongoing, such as the local government sessions, council highlights on social media, community outreach, and local government week education in October. I'm happy to introduce a short video that committee members put together to highlight some of the work done so far.
Hi, my name is Dana Stott, and I'm here for the Innisfil Electoral Engagement Committee, and we are here today to ask people if they voted in the last election, and if not, why not, so we can help encourage people to vote in the next one. Come on with me.
Building on what we've already accomplished, we're excited to propose a series of other activities, including a Municipal Matters Most campaign to showcase the importance of local government in our community, a speaker event at the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library to reinvigorate interest in civic participation, coffee chats with council and school trustees to give residents an opportunity to connect with you in a casual setting, to share feedback and ask questions, engagement with local high schools and the town's Youth Connects Committee, continued outreach at community events and in public spaces such as neighborhood nights or the Innisfil Farmers Market, plans to enhance candidate information and municipal election promotions. As committee members, we are all part of this community. We will act as ambassadors with our community groups and connections to further awareness of local government and the importance of voting. We're also aware that work is happening at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, across the province through their Healthy Democracy Project. We will consider it and adapt as we learn more about that project. To help support some of the initiatives, we're asking that funds be released from the Municipal Elections Reserved. As outlined in the engagement plan, we are asking for $4,200 to build momentum, inform community members, and increase engagement and interest in local government ahead of the next election. The details of where the funds will be spent are outlined in the engagement plan. Thank you for your time tonight. We encourage council and community members to stay engaged and informed with this important work. People can follow the project page at getinvolvedinnisfil.ca/elections and watch for EEAC members at upcoming events to learn more. We're happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Chair Fishman and members of the committee for this important work. Questions or comments, please, from members of council. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to thank the committee members for all the great work that you've done and the report you've put forward and the suggestions that you've come up with. I'm going to propose that $4,000 isn't enough. We are so low in terms of turnout that I think that a lot more resources in terms of dollars resources needs to be spent on making the next turnout much better than it currently is. So I just think what you've proposed is great. I don't think it's enough to get this ship turned around and get more people out there running. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to that?
I think the 4,200 is more of an initial request that we're going to ask for. I think as we get closer towards the election, we'll probably ask for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. No, I'm just joking. I don't know yet. But we'll be asking for more money because we have a lot more things on the ball that we want to get started for just prior to the election.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. Thank you to all the committee for providing this information to us tonight. It's a very interesting read. I like the fact that you're starting off with small initiatives, like you're trying to get that personal connection, which is a really big thing in politics on a municipal level. Having these big band events is not always a great thing. It's always that one-on-one when you can sit and explain to people the importance of how their vote matters. A scenario when I was during the last election, when I was meeting people, I encountered a father and a son changing their brakes on the front of the car. And the disconnect was clearly evident when the father couldn't get the son to vote. It was his first time, he was 18. And I asked him, I sat down with him and I said, let me ask you a question. How long, when you guys have your friends over, what do? You order pizza. I will use that as an example. And they go, right. And I said that, how long does it take you to organize who wants what toppings, what's delivering, how soon, what dipping sauces, everything? It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to get four guys to agree. And then on top of that, you're taking that time for something that'll last 4 hours. And when I looked at him, I said, well, what if I told you in 5 minutes you can change the future of the town for 4 years, right? And it kind of clicked with the kid. It's that one-on-one, like I said, it's that one-on-one connection. You can't do that in a grand scale, but when you reach people, as you're putting out here with the speakers and the coffee with council, which I think is a fabulous idea for the record, that's where you're going to get the momentum. And if you can build on that and it turns out really positive, I agree. When you come back for more, we give you more and see what else you can do with it. So keep up with the incredible ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Other questions or comments from members of council? I think it's all very good work. It's a national trend. It certainly isn't just in Ontario. I know that Prince Edward Island, in their elections, they were around the same percentage as we are, and the average percentage in Ontario is 36. So we do have a long way to go. I am also very excited about the Healthy Democracy project that AMO has embarked upon, and I'm also very much looking forward to learning more about it. They had a program called We All Win in the last election, which is about getting more candidates, more diverse candidates on the ballot, hearing from more voices. And they're also doing a respectful democracy, because part of it is you'll get more candidates to run if they feel that they're not going to be threatened or bullied when they get in that position. So there's lots of pieces to it, and certainly all of them together will get that voter turnout up. And I think very much, I forget something about municipal matters most, which is so true. You know, what we do affects every day of your life, from, you know, flushing your toilet to getting your road plowed. All of those things are the things that matter most to us. And there's nothing that irks me more when somebody starts talking to me about they know the exact number of points between the spread in the country south of us, between candidates. They know everything about the American election, and they don't know who their local councillor is. And it really shows you there the disconnect about how important it is that people vote. I've also heard from our local MPP that she won't go out and campaign the day after a snowstorm, because when she goes to doors and campaigns about a provincial election, people want to talk about snowplows because they think maybe she has something to do with snowplows. So we have a lot of work to do, but we're so grateful that we've got such a high energy group to work on it. And thank you for all of the efforts that you're putting in, along with our staff team.
Thank you, and to all of council as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. So we have a recommendation that's on the screen. I won't reread it. I'll just ask if we have a mover and a seconder, please, to move that. I have it moved by Deputy Mayor Fowler and seconded by Councillor Constantine. All those in favor? That is carried. Our next delegation this evening is from Mr. John Trotter, and it's regarding item C1, the sale or part of Old Highway 11 on Yonge Street.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I've read the staff report for the proposed sale of Old Highway 11 to the developer that owns 5567 Yonge. I'm firmly against this proposal, and I hope that Council will reject the poorly planned and unsupported idea. This idea first came to light when the developer purchased the property. The developer was and still is an absentee landlord that has no roots or connection to the community. The idea has never developed any support from the people who live here, the taxpayers, or past council members. No one supports it. The developer has left the property in poor to rundown condition, and in some years it has been completely abandoned. This report is loaded with future liability issues for the town if it is implemented. Words like could and would and it appears and other terms that pertain to general uncertainty about the plan are found in many places. In the history section of the staff report, the history of the road fails to mention that it was first surveyed in 1820 and opened shortly thereafter as part of the defense and settlement system for Upper Canada. At that time, and ever since, there have been entranceways onto my farm. Any insinuation that my right-of-ways are in some ways self-authorized or unauthorized is purely a construction of fantasy made to support a demand that is unreasonable. I can state that those driveways with culverts have been in place longer than I've lived on the property, which exceeds 60 years now. And they were certainly there before I was born. These driveways are important access points to all of my fields, which were historically divided up and served individually from each public road access. Now, I have changed the crop rotation schedule on my farm, but if I want to return to the multi-crop rotation system, I will find those driveways invaluable. In fact, the driveway that we are discussing has been used a lot in the recent months. Larry Kell's combines, his wagons, his tractors. I actually saw him drive one of the tractors in. And many trucks have entered and exited my farm using this particular driveway and Old Highway 11. It is a childish argument to say that I should just use other entrances. These are my driveways. It's my property. I should decide when and how to use them. Also, my property value will decrease if I'm no longer full frontage and I lose a driveway. I have consulted a local real estate expert that believes I would lose possibly up to 30% of the land value from this loss of frontage and access. I'm sure that everyone here is familiar with the name Lou Kelly. Here are his words on this matter. I'm extremely familiar with all types of properties and their values in Innisfil, as I have been buying and selling properties in Innisfil for many decades. I've also been appraising properties for real estate sale purposes. It is my opinion that a property that loses a portion of its frontage loses value. And the same is true with regards to access via driveways. Frontage is one of the key methods of assessing value, and access is another very important aspect. I have reviewed the town plans with regards to selling of a portion of Old Highway 11, and I have no doubt that the value of Mr. Trotter's farm would be negatively impacted if this proposal occurs. I believe that Mr. Trotter's property would suffer a significant decrease in value, perhaps as much as 30% with this significant change in frontage and access. Those are the words of Lou Kelly. As it stands today, those driveways are not infrequently used, as the report states, and only a developer that has no knowledge of farming and no interests except their own would state, and I quote, that long intact grasses during the summer, unquote, proves that point. The summer is when certain crops are, by definition, left alone to grow and thrive. And even then, some access is required to have sprayers enter and leave the fields without causing significant damage to crops. Steve Kell made use of this driveway and Old Highway 11 several times this spring to spray my wheat. It's very normal. A farmer from the second session, 1 mile away, who read this staff report, Ken Simpson, sitting right over here, was amazed that such a foolish statement would be made. And he said something like the following, and I paraphrase, "If long grasses in the farm entrance prove lack of use and irrelevance, then a dusty fire extinguisher should probably be ignored during a fire." He too is against this poorly thought out plan. Clearly, the developer wants to add acreage to his property to attempt to make it something that it's just not. And just as clear is the lack of water and sewer services that will make the proposed multi-drive fast food operation impossible. The county has already made its views known by restricting further access. And the safety issues of a high volume of traffic entering and leaving the property are obvious. Keep in mind, this is an 80-kilometer-an-hour zone, and the county plans to widen the road to 4 lanes. And that road widening is very important. If this proposal is allowed, the options for the county become more limited. Since town staff already believes that the south portion of the road would be of use to Simcoe County, clearly keeping the public road section, especially the portion that attaches to the existing road, will help the county make good plans for the future. Conversely, allowing the proposal to go ahead will put an actual roadblock in place for future generations. I'm amazed at the generic comments that are used as filler in this document. It reminds me of a high school essay. For example, the following quote: "The farm vehicles, which are much wider than the standard cars, are the source of threats for the car, bikes, and pedestrians which will be using the old Highway 11 road," unquote. This is both an indictment of farming in general and an admission that the road is currently being used for active farming. Here's another quote: "Such a plaza is likely to enhance traffic due to its convenience." The reverse is obviously true. The traffic issues will be massive and will impact the road and the house that is at 449 Old Highway 11, owned by Lisa, who will be speaking very soon, as the vehicles would be forced to enter and leave from a planned 4-lane road and line up in front of that house. Here's one of the quotes that I like the least: "Improve access via the renovated Old Highway 11 will also benefit the Esso gas station and increase its client volume," unquote. It's another example of the crass nature of this proposal. I am the expert in how my business works, and I am a very well respected and knowledgeable Esso dealer. And I can state that no evidence exists to support this. There are more examples of empty platitudes and falsehoods, but I'm sure many of them are obvious. This section of road is very practical as it is. It costs very little to maintain. The local people can and do use it to walk dogs, exercise, park cars and trucks for short times, and all services, garbage, mail, snowplow, salt trucks, all of them have a sensible and safe way of driving through instead of having to face the proposed dead end. This is a through road. The amount stated in the report for road improvements seems very reasonable when we admit that nothing has been spent on this road in generations. I have been here for over 60 years, and I know that to be true. I believe the last capital was spent by the province when they owned it. It also seems reasonable to leave it mostly as is and see what the future brings. Our town does not need the money. We do indeed use the road, and the proposed multi-store plaza is not a realistic proposal for this area. I have much more to say on the matter, but I'm sure I have said enough, and I hope that the council finds it in their wisdom to reject this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Trotter. Are there questions for Mr. Trotter? Councillor Drudge.
Just more of a comment. I appreciate you coming out this evening and expressing your concerns with the sale of Old Yonge Street, and I'm sure all of council here has taken what you've said tonight into concern when we make our decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder, please, for the recommendation? Councillor Drudge, Councillor Richardson, all those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Trotter. Our next delegation on the same item tonight is Elisa Di Gianbattista. I hope I said that right, Lisa.
Good evening, Council. I'm here tonight to speak against the potential sale of Old Highway 11. I've been against this from the start, ever since the potential buyers first approached the town and filed an application with intentions to purchase the whole road. I've lived on this road for more than 3 decades. I raised my 3 children, and I operated my business there. The business was the Barclay Square Restaurant, 5567 Yonge Street. You have been told at the last meeting that at time of purchase, the business wasn't financially viable. We operated it for 29 years, only because of my lupus illness and my husband passing from cancer, that 2.5 years after his passing, I made the hard decision to sell. Indeed, if Phil didn't pass away and I didn't have lupus, I am sure that my family would still be proud owners of this wonderful historical establishment in this great town of Innisfil, making customers still happy today. The new owner had a much different business plan. The property was to be part of his portfolio, and he chose to be an absentee landlord. The property has spent time in various rented or leased operations, and that has been just often abandoned. The property has suffered from this ownership, and it has, to say the least, gone drastically downhill. I have experience with regards to this matter, the people and the property. The plan as proposed is not well thought out. Many questions are unanswered, and many answers are unworkable. It's also important to point out that the north half of the proposed development property is environmentally sensitive. I know this because I owned it for almost 3 decades and had to be very careful when flooding occurred. I would add, if this 5 drive-through and Old Highway 11 sale potentially goes forward, my home would effectively have a commercial driveway in front of it due to the volume of traffic that it might attract. This would be a burden on myself and my family who would have to deal with this situation. This would mean that when things are busy, the road in front of my house would be a parking lot, a stopping area, or just a very busy entranceway. And what about delivery trucks, staff, so many unknowns? You have been told that this road, Old Highway 11, is unused, and it is also impractical for the town to maintain. Well, that's not true. The town will still have to maintain the unsold portion, and for usage, our family values the road and uses the road regularly. We have garbage trucks, recycling trucks, mail delivery, couriers, snowplows, salt trucks, and many other vehicles that regularly use the road. And it only makes sense for them to use a through road without having to turn around on a dead end, which is the proposal. And they would have even greater difficulty if this road became a commercial entrance. John Trotter, who owns the farm adjacent to Old Highway 11, is constantly using the road for farm equipment, etc. For farming, we see many people using the road because we live there and are well versed in its use. We all value and use Old Highway 11. I'm not against town growth or innovation, but I don't believe that selling Old Highway 11 is the correct thing to do. I know that I sold my property, 5567 Yonge Street, and that the new owner can use the property as he sees fit, within reason, even if it's detrimental to the property and the community. But I am very worried that if the town sells a section of Old Highway 11, the result will be the same. I think we would see repeated attempts to use the land inappropriately and without a sensible and reasonable plan. I believe the plans as stated are unworkable and unwise. I was told if Old Highway 11 was sold, the buyers would be responsible for the turning circle, and the turning circle would be constructed approximately just south of my property and to town standards. I believe now the plan calls for a hammerhead instead of a turning circle, which seems to be in front of my home. So this is very confusing. Further confusion and question, would 5567 Yonge Street have access to the north end of Old Highway 11? The plans don't guarantee anything. I'm here to give you my thoughts because I believe honesty without fabrications and disinformation and good planning is the way to continue going forward. And this plan lacks these qualities. Please reject this bad idea. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. John Batista. Thank you for your presentation. Questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Ices?
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Elise, for that presentation. I was really glad to talk to you after the last council meeting, and I could really sense your passion for the restaurant. The Barclay Square truly was a gem, and you should be really proud of those years that it existed.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drodge.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Councillor Icey said, thank you again for coming and speaking today. And I went to Berkeley Square as a kid with my family, and you did an exceptional job running that business, so thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next delegation this evening, sorry, I need a mover and a seconder before we move on. Councillor Waters and Councillor Zanella, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And our next delegation this evening is Mr. Rob Nicol, and on the same topic. Welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, Council, staff. Thank you for sharing a few minutes of your time with me. I know you've had a bit of a break, a well-deserved break. I'm currently on holidays as well myself right now, so I'm having my time with you. You've got a big agenda tonight, and I could talk about item B4, the ward boundary review. I could look at C10 and how 1291 Shore Acres substantially changed from what we were sold, or even G1, the library board minutes, if you'd like. But tonight is just about C1 and Old Yonge Street. Unfortunately, I don't have access to my old town emails or files, and therefore couldn't print off the correspondence that I had on this. Maybe if Grant or Dave or Craig or somebody in IT could maybe recover them, because this was already dealt with at least twice by myself, and also once by former Councillor Richard Simpson. The staff report itself identifies a long history, and with staff turnovers, which seems to have created a bit of a broken telephone game. To me, the staff report is misleading and not providing council with an accurate picture. In 2015, it says no objection. That's completely incorrect. Myself and the abutting property owners all expressed real concerns, and to my knowledge, it was dealt with then. In 2020, it resurfaces again. The staff report says only a few comments, maybe, but that was again from myself and the affected property owners concerned, repeating their concerns. 9 years after I thought I had dealt with this, it's back yet again. So I'm here to share some additional background information for you. As stated, 5489 Yonge has 3 access points in the midsection of Old Yonge Street. If you sell it, you're restricting access to the farm. Councillor Ices can likely attest farms need multiple access points. Staff's response on a severance being unlikely is irrelevant because it could be severed. But realistically, 5489 Yonge would become functionally obsolete and unable to access lands that abuts a major transportation artery. I ask, is it policy to make property owners change their address as it becomes landlocked? The delegation at the last meeting suggested that the farm could just use the access from Highway 89 instead. We can't seriously be forcing the property owner to drive through cash crops to get around their field. I'm not arguing the practicality or functionality of these drive-throughs with vehicles crossing the new 4 lanes of Yonge Street that are coming. Just consider that this sale would reduce 5489 Yonge Street's access points, but give 5567 up to 5 new driveways, according to their lease ads that they're putting out right now. In watching the delegation to council, I wonder how could this property possibly accommodate a Tim Hortons, McDonald's, and 3 other restaurants on a tiny septic and communal well? Why, as Mr. Pardee stated, was the town staff pushing to sell this to him? He said that he bought the property in 2016, but this came to me in 2015. Was it from another applicant, or were they trying to buy it before the Berkeley Square? By the way, I truly missed that prime rib, and if you could do the full log, you were a champion. Thank you. Sorry, but anyways, if this isn't already enough for council to turn this down yet again, it should be denied just based on the town's own policies. Section 2.015, applications will be terminated if inactive for 1 year. The staff report states it was circulated in 2015 and then again in 2020. I don't have to take my shoes and socks off to count. That's 5 years. And now it's back again 9 years later from when I thought I dealt with it, or so I thought. In 2.08, applications will not be approved if the closure would deprive other landowners of their sole access to their properties. The abutting farm property is addressed 5489 Yonge and has 3 existing entrances on Old Yonge Street. Therefore, selling this would result in the loss of existing accesses and depriving that property owner. 3.04, council approval is required if you receive objections to the closure. I objected in 2015. Former Councillor Richard Simpson objected to this when it came up the term before I was here. And I also objected when it was recirculated again, when it somehow reared itself in 2020. All abutting property owners have also objected. So for over 9 years, with 2 previous councillors and all abutting property owners objecting to the disposition of this road, I ask that this council finally puts us to bed with option 2 or the alternate 2 and not sell this roadway portion. Honestly, fielding tons of complaints over my 8 years in Ward 7, I never heard one about the condition of Old Yonge Street. And seriously, it does not need rehabilitation either. It's mostly gravel. Just grade it and please leave this road as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Mr. Nicol, former Councillor Nicol.
Thank you.
Other questions, any questions or comments for Mr. Nicol? Seeing none, thank you very much. And could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That is carried. And I believe that's the end of our delegations this evening. Thank you to everyone. And we'll go to item 7, which is County Council Municipal. I'm sorry, sir, there's no opportunity to object at this point. So, sir, you were signed up to speak at the open forum and you chose not to. Sir, I'm going to have to stop you there. First of all, because we're being live streamed, nobody can hear what you're saying. And secondly, Madam Clerk, there was a request for a delegation that came in late, I understand, but could you just confirm that, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. And no, the clerk's office did not receive any request to delegate to the meeting. It was my understanding that the property owner had asked about participating in the meeting, but that was late Monday afternoon. So clerk services did circulate to all of council and to staff the recording of the presentation from the June 26th meeting so that council could refamiliarize themselves with the presentation and have easy access for review.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll ask members of council, did every member of council get a copy of the June 26th presentation with the video? They did? Okay, thank you very much. Then we'll move on with item 7. Any county council, municipal associations, conservation authorities, or committees to update? I have one, and that's just to say that a majority of council and several staff members will be attending the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference and general meeting. It's the 125th AMO conference, and it'll be held in the city of Ottawa starting on Sunday. We're fortunate enough, we asked for 6 delegations with different ministries, and we were granted all 6 delegations. And I look forward to the many workshops that will be taking place. And also, I have been a member of the AMO board since 2011, and it's election year, and I've put my name forward to sit on the Small Urban Caucus again this year. Although it's going to be a tight race, as there are 11 people running for 4 seats. So we'll see. I'll let you know how I make out when I come back. Anyone else have any other items for item number 7? Seeing none, then we'll move on to item 8, which is the consent agenda, and we'll start with so what happens during this part of the agenda? We have a list of items on the consent agenda. Each one of them comes with a staff recommendation. If there are no questions, no comments, and all of council's happy with the staff recommendation, it will be confirmed at the end of the meeting with a confirmatory bylaw. However, if council members have a question, that's fine, they can ask it, or if they want to pull it and debate it further in committee of the whole, we'll do so at that time. So it's going to sound like a bit of a bingo game at first, but we'll get through that list and see which items get pulled. First is item A1, the special council meeting minutes dated June the 19th. Item A2, the special council meeting minutes dated June the 26th. Item A3, the council meeting minutes dated June the 26th. I did just have one item then on the June the, oh, sorry, no, I'm confused, my fault. Next is B1, the summary board report, June 18th, Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. B2, the summary report of the Electoral Engagement Advisory Committee meetings. B3, the Accessibility Advisory Committee meetings that took place. B4, the Ward Boundary Review Ad Hoc Committee meetings. Then we go to items C. C1, the sale or part of Old Highway 11 deferred from June the 26th. Councillor Drodge.
I'd like to pull that to committee of the whole, please.
Thank you. C2, the all-way stop control at various locations. Councillor, or Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment on the report. In the past number of weeks, there's been a number of collisions at 9th and 25th, and a lot of confusion regarding what is going in as a traffic measure. I'd like to point out in the report that they're looking at an all-way stop as opposed to the roundabout, which is on the town webpage if it passes tonight. So we're looking at moving forward with this in the safety of things. I saw, sorry, she had her hand up, so. Yes, for the moment.
Thank you. So I just want to make a couple of comments, and then I see that Ms. Catilla also has a comment. First of all, I want to say that the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee has recommended these changes, and there are 3 of them, not just the one the Deputy Mayor spoke about. And I wanted to make the point that quite often I'll get a phone call, and I'm sure other members of council do, saying, well, just put up a stop sign there, just put up a stop sign here. And you'll see by the pages and pages and pages of data collection and all of the thought process and the formula calculations that go into these decisions to make sure that they're safe for everyone. I want to just point that out to everyone here, that all of that has to be considered with a bylaw prior to making any decisions about four-way stops. And Ms. Catilla, did you have a comment?
Yes, through you, Your Worship. Just for clarity for the public, this report does recommend, and the near-term recommendation is to put in an always stop. However, as we proceed forward on the active transportation works on the 25th Side Road, which are going to include things like sidewalks and bicycle lanes, it is extremely likely that that will be eventually changed into a mini roundabout, although that will be some years in the future. So in the interim, we will be having an always stop.
Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate the fact that with the Transportation Master Plan that it actually is coming into play. The concern with the people right now with the school year starting is the frequency of accidents and the access with the children. So this was just to draw attention that the town staff is actively working towards this, the committee is actively working towards this, and that council is supporting hopefully, this idea that we are looking out for our children in that specific region, among many others. Thank you.
Councillor Zanella.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a comment, and I just want to say how ecstatic
I am, about the 9th line in 25th Side Road. This intersection has been a nightmare for years and years, and it gets worse and worse every year, and we have a lot of new development in the area, so it's something that we desperately needed, and I'm really happy to see that it's going to happen, and also that they're going to put a red flashing light on it, so there's no way that you're not going to be able to see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else comments on this item? I would just bring forward too, since we have members in the audience from that neck of the woods, that another one of these is line 2 in the 20th Side Road. So we'll go now to item C4. That is the Alcona Downs, oh, sorry, I missed one. C3, the Canada Community Building Fund Agreement Renewal. So I can't let this one go just without saying we quite often talk about the things that don't happen here, but extremely pleased to see this 10-year renewal come back for what used to be called the federal gas tax, which is now called the Canada Community Building Fund Agreement. It is a predictable, very flexible and federal funding that comes to the town of Innisfil for a number of different projects. We can actually bank it and build upon it if we so choose. And we're only one of 2 provinces that gets it delivered this way. Other provinces have to actually apply for a particular work to be done, and they either get the yes or the no, where we get this funding, this predictable funding every year. And the other really good thing about this funding is it's done because it's administered by AMO, the administration costs for delivering this money are about half of what it costs the federal money to the federal government to, actually it's about a quarter. They budget for half, and then typically there's leftover money at the end of the year that is then put out again to the municipalities. So it's a great deal, and the 10-year agreement, having that renewed, is something that we should all be celebrating. So I just wanted to say that, and very happy to sign this agreement for 10 more years. Next is item C4, which is the Alcona Downs Development Phase 2 Stage 2 agreement. Next is item C5, which is the Alcona Downs Development Phase 2 and 3. And finally, the Alcona Downs Development Phase 1 and 2. Not pulling any of those items, then we'll go to the Sandy Trail subdivision assumption. Councillor Waters.
Just a comment, I want to thank staff for taking care of this issue. This was a development that went in directly across from my house and had some serious issues over the years. So I'm glad staff were able to take it over, correct all the issues with it, and I believe you did it with the money that was held back from the development. So we were able to do something the developer wasn't able to do, and thank you for your time and your efforts to do that.
Thank you. Next is item C8, which is the Bel Air Beach Road subdivision. Questions or comments on that one? Seeing none, C9, which is 1291 Shore Acres Drive servicing allocation. Councillor Waters?
I don't need to pull it, but I do have a question concerning this item. The question I have is that when we provide water to a site and then we expect the subdivision to install sewage and septic systems on site, it becomes kind of an asymmetrical water balance for that area, so that we're adding water to the site in an area which usually has groundwater issues, flooding issues. And so I'm kind of curious, have you done a water balance calculation for that area where we won't anticipate any type of flooding due to the fact that we're adding water and not removing it through a sewer system that we would normally put in a normal subdivision. Thank you.
Director Lee?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through to Councillor Waters. So that would be a requirement from the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority for their review. I would have to look, Councillor Waters, and see whether we had a copy of that water balance report. I can certainly do that and advise.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is C10, which is 2595 Leonard Street. That was the class variation to the community planning permit system through our shores. Seeing none. C11, which is the zoning bylaw amendment for 7958 Yonge Street. Questions or comments? Councillor Ices.
I'd like to refer that to committee, please.
Thank you. Next is C12, which is the application to demolish a listed property at 3523 25 Side Road. Councillor or Deputy Mayor Fowler?
Thank you, Worship. This is not a simple black and white issue. The reason that the committee is putting forward the idea to maintain the property as it stands is we're seeking further discussion with the owner of the property. There's other factors in play. It's not all surface right now, so we're working our way through it, and would just appreciate the support to move forward in this fashion.
Thank you. I'm actually, if I could ask somebody to pull this one, I just have quite a few questions. So Councillor Saunders, thank you. All right, item D1. That would be the Q2 operating and capital financial updates. D2, the 2023 development charges treasurer's statement. Just a question that's semi-related, if I could, to the treasurer regarding this. At some point, would it be possible to get an update on the impact of the 2024 phase-in that was required by the province before it was reversed, and what that cost us in the first part of 2024?
Yes, that's some information that we could gather and potentially report back in our next quarter report to you.
Thank you very much for that. Next is the customer services results for Q2 2024. Councillor Waters.
Just a quick question. Always appreciate getting these reports just because it gives us a good idea in terms of the amount of work that our customer service staff are put under. I'm just kind of curious. I'm reading the Q1 2024 versus Q2 2024, and the numbers are like plus 45, plus 71% increases in interactions. I'm just kind of curious, is there a particular issue around those dramatic increases, or is it just we're growing?
Ms. Beagle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry, Councillor Waters, if you could repeat your question for me?
Sure. In the report, I think page 2 of 6, Q1 2024 versus Q2 2024, yes. The plus and minus, like it says, inbound interactions up 19%, inbound digital interactions up 45%, inbound service counter interactions up 71%. So I'm kind of, is there a particular issue that people are inquiring about, or is it just because of growth we're seeing this amount of increase in interactions?
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Waters, for that question. That actually just reflects the seasonal changes that we see in terms of our engagement. So Q1 is typically a more quiet quarter, and particularly this year because we had, knock on wood, a very quiet winter as well. So we didn't have a lot of snow complaints that we would normally see during that time, but it is natural for us in Q2 to really see that spike, and we'll see that again in Q3 as well, and hopefully start to edge off in Q4.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and there wasn't enough ice to have all the parking complaints from the ice fishermen parking too, which I'm sure made a difference. Thank you, Ms. Beagle. Next is D4, building permits issued, Q2 2024 update. just a comment on that regarding the like residential permits or residential occupancy versus the growth numbers, which to me, like I'm wondering if the Broccolini development, if that was the basis for that. That just seemed the IC&I had really increased, and yet the residential had not increased. And I wondered, am I interpreting those numbers right? Ms. Lee?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. So you are correct. There were a couple of significant ICI projects which spike the ICI numbers over the residential. There are a number of residential projects that are underway. So the occupancies that you did see identified in 2024, those have gone down. The number of permits, we are starting to see progress in a number of the communities, but it is lower than previous years for residential.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Seeing none, then we'll go on to municipal law activity Q2 2024 updates. Questions or comments? Again, one quick one. I just wondered if I'd be curious to see the Q2 2024 versus Q2 2023 updates at some point, just the year in review, so we could see where the trends are as far as, animal. Seems like it's the top three are animal control, parking, and I can't remember what the third one is now, but to see if there's any change in that. Thank you for that. Next is bylaws. So we'll go to E1. So the bylaw to ratify a collective agreement with the IPFFA. Seeing none, we'll go to correspondence for action. This is a recommendation from AMO regarding and the OMA, the Ontario Medical Association, regarding critical health care challenges that we've been asked to approve. Seeing none. The second one is correspondence from Marianne Mead Ward, the mayor of the city of Burlington and member of Large Urban Caucus at AMO, a Respect for Democracy pledge. This one also came out of the Healthy Democracy Project. The number of elected officials quitting or resigning their positions over the last couple of years just due to personal attacks, threats, particularly women in government, has become an issue, and the Large Urban Caucus and the HER group from Halton Region is taking the lead on this particular piece of advocacy. Seeing none, we'll go to G1, which is the correspondence for information. We have the Innisfil Library Board minutes, the Innisfil Police Service Board minutes, the County of Simcoe highlights, and then several proclamations: International Overdose Awareness Day, Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, National Coaches Week, Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Awareness Day, and the Fierté Simcoe Pride Week. Pulling none, then that's it. And we'll go to the consent list agenda. Moved by Deputy Mayor Fowler, and seconded by Councillor Zanella, that the consent list items be pulled to committee of the whole and that the rest be considered for approval at the end of the meeting. Council, it's 8:15. I'm going to ask if we could have just a 10-minute break, please, to stretch our legs, and we'll resume. For those online, if you could please come back. We'll be back here and starting our process at 8:25. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience. We finished the consent list, continued, and I'm going to ask council if we could waive procedure. It seems, although clerks followed the procedural bylaw perfectly, that there was some misunderstanding between clerk services and the proponent of C1. And they would like to address council and a delegation to a maximum of the town of 10 minutes, and respectfully. And so I would ask council if they would waive procedure to hear from the proponents, the applicants. All those in favor? That is carried. So are the applicants ready to proceed? Thank you. So I'd ask you have 10 minutes maximum to do your presentation, and then if anybody has questions, they will answer them at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for this opportunity. Thank you very much, honorable councillors, for giving me this opportunity to respond. My honorable neighbors, they raised concerns which were not reflected in the written presentations that were provided to me before our previous meeting, which was on June 26, 2024, which we presented the response basically to their concern. My main concern is that the councillors, the honorable councillors, is a very, very delicate job, and I want them to have objective, scientific, reliable information in order to make a right decision to the interest of the entire population of Innisfil, not the three individuals who expressed their personal interest and their personal taste, which could be quite valid, but a council's decision should rely exclusively on the interest of the entire population of the town. And that is my concern, because I do believe strongly that the responsibility, maintenance, and the cost of maintaining a section only of this Highway 11, which we are proposing to acquire, is a huge financial and liability responsibility for the town that would be ultimately at the shoulder of each citizen, of each resident of the town. And many of the concerns that raised by my honorable neighbors are not based on facts, on evidence that were provided to me by my consultant, by my traffic consultant who have more than 25 years experience, by my environmental expert who studied the site. They are willing, they will be completely available to answer any specific question. I am deeply saddened by hearing that my honorable neighbors qualify the expert opinion of your staff, of the town staff report, which is based on objective scientific evidence, without any kind of political connotation. They're providing you the truth as it is, and they qualify these honorable neighbors as foolish and completely wrong. This should not be allowed, because this is completely false. The staff of the town of Innisfil did a wonderful job, and they tried to stay away from all kind of political color connotations of any kind, and decided to provide an objective report, which is unanimously in support of selling a section only of this Highway 11. I do believe that is beneficial not only to the resident, but also to the resident in my neighborhood, immediate neighborhood, and I explained in details those benefits. I'm not going to repeat myself, but predominantly to the public at large, because they are going to use not only the services that we do provide at this site, but also the additional safety and improvement that we are going to implement for this Highway 11. It is, in my opinion, very important to emphasize that many of the concerns that they are raising are exclusively related to their personal interest and property value and things like that, which should not be into consideration when when you're assessing the seriousness of the situation. And the message that one of the neighbors says that you are not allowed to invest in Innisfil. You are coming from out of Innisfil. Is the Innisfil township sending a message to all investors in Canada and all over the world that you are not allowed to invest in our township because you are not living 65 years in Innisfil? Is this a valid justification for opposing my proposal? Because I want to create employment that is going to be beneficial to the entire town of Innisfil, and because I am coming from out of Innisfil should not disqualify me for having a fair hearing, a fair application processing, which has been done a wonderful job so far. My work with the staff, a planning department, and other department of town of Innisfil, they did a wonderful job. They did answer all my questions, and I'm very thankful of their work so far. All I want to ask is if there is a slightest doubt in the mind of any of your these honorable councillors about their objectiveness and truthfulness of their vote, I suggest to postpone it at the date that we can satisfy completely all the concerns that each councillor, each honorable councillor, including honorable councillor Mr. Fred Dodge, who might be intrinsically against my proposal for a variety of political reasons, but he is more than welcome. We had a meeting with this gentleman, with this honorable councillor on Monday to talk to him and answer all his questions and concerns. Unfortunately, less than 1 hour before the meeting, the honorable councillor Dodge canceled his meeting just 2 days ago. We did request to have a delegation tonight on July 26, which is more than 2 weeks ago, and the clerk responded that we are not allowed to have a delegation because we already had one. So we did not know that the neighbors are going to present a delegation with new information to which we had absolutely no access when we did our first delegation on June 26. That's all I have to say. If there is any specific question, not on technical nature, because I'm a developer, I'm an investor. I like the town of Innisfil. I ultimately may live in here as well because I have purchased a property where I am going to build my house here. Therefore, that is my interest in this town. I like this town. I like the people. I like everything about this town. And I want to develop and I want to serve the public at large here. And I do not want to address the concern or taste of only a few individuals who are making a statement and claims which are not based on evidence. That's all. And any concern that you have, any question that you have regarding technical issues that my consultant can address, can respond, I am willing to arrange for that to take place. If there is any other general question, I'm willing to answer. If there is any doubt for any of you, please postpone the vote on a certain date when everybody is 100% satisfied that they have all the objective information. That's all my 10 minutes, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Could we have your name for the record, sir?
Yes,
so
my
we
name
can...
is Bijan Pardis, last name Pardis, first name Bijan for Pacific Inc.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Mr. Pardis? Councillor Dodge.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just some comments. It's not 3 individuals. There's 15 individuals in the room this evening.
3 properties.
No, there's 15 people, sir, that are objecting against this roadway. Secondly, all roads are a liability for the town, not just that one. When you own something, there's always a liability involved. Thirdly, to attack an individual about the property value of his property and that if it were to go down for a reason due to something that you're trying to accomplish, I don't believe that's fair for any resident of Innisfil. Landowners coming from out of town, we want everybody to come to town. We want everybody to do well with their businesses. What we don't want is people that have land and just let them go to waste. We don't want derelict landowners. That is the issue that we have currently in front of us this evening. Thirdly, this is not for political reasons. I genuinely disagree with the sale of Old Yonge Street. And anybody that knows this, including staff, I've been preaching this for 6 months. So it is not for political reasons, because I genuinely feel it's a bad idea to sell this road.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone have any questions or comments? Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I would agree with the sentiments that Councillor Drodge has brought forward. It's not a disservice to the town when the town knows, when council knows the value of this road to its community. There's a commercial property that you own. You're free to develop it as you wish. This issue tonight is not about your project. It's about the value of the road to the community. And, you know, as a farmer, reading your report, it was explained very well by Mr. Trotter and others. You've done a huge disservice in the report by being disingenuous about what farmers have to do, with their land, to suggest that less entrances are good enough. Those suggestions that the road isn't of value to the community. And that's where I could not support this in any way, regardless of the project. So it's those reasons that I'm going to vote against this motion. Nothing to do with political connotations or the fact that 3 people were looking after them. This is about the agriculture community in Innisfil, and for it to be suggested otherwise is just plain wrong.
Thank you. Others? Deputy Mayor Feller?
Thank you, Worship. As this has been progressing, I just want to be very clear on one thing. Our job as council is to look at the greater community, not a specific piece of property or a specific development. It is to see the overall benefit to the community and the effects any changes have, be it a ward or townwide. Now, it's nothing, I tell you this much, there have been developers that live in Innisfil that have had projects turned down, and I've been on the forefront of one of them in my previous term, because I felt it did not fit into the fabric of the space that they want to put it. If they wanted to move it elsewhere where it would have a less detrimental effect, by all means, we could look into that. In this situation, I personally, I hear your words. I've seen your presentation. You've had 2 delegations. You've given reports. It doesn't convince me that that location is where this needs to be. As a landowner and a man who wishes to do a business deal, by all means, I can appreciate your efforts and your intentions to better the community, but we as a council have a greater view of the history of the town and as well where things would directly impact it, be it positive or negative. So I understand your passion. I disagree with the way you're presenting it. I disagree with the language you're using, and it doesn't look well overall. So I'm saying as one professional to another, I can appreciate the effort you put in, the work that's gone into it, the documentation and the reports and everything else. However, your vision for that piece of Guildford doesn't reflect the community's idea of Guildford. Thank you.
Thank
Actually,
you.
very short comment.
Go ahead.
Of course, the councillors, you are entitled to any opinion you have regarding whatever traffic or farming. But I would like to know if you have any evidence from a farmer that can justify the claim. That's my first comment. And secondly, I believe that this council would be accountable to the public of Innisfil to justify the extra expense that the public has to support from taxpayers' money it comes in order to improve and make this highway safe for public use. That has to come ultimately from the public purse, and I would like to know that you will have enough justification to satisfy public. That's all.
Thank you, sir. So this isn't a debate. This was to allow you to delegate to us, and we appreciate that you've done that, and we thank you very much for that. Questions from members of council? Councillor Zanella.
Thank you, Your Worship. While I understand what you're wanting to do, I just don't think that the time is right for what you're looking at. I think that somewhere down the road, it's going to be viable and it may happen. But at this point, I think first of all, we need to see Highway 11 widened and find out what that's going to look like. I just don't think this is the right time. And I also have a concern about, you want to put in restaurants, there's no water. How do you survive as a restaurant owner and not having any water? Everybody's on, there's no sewers, none of that stuff is in there right now. And while I do see many years from now that probably there will be, but I just don't see it at this time. Thank you.
Your point is well taken in terms of the timing. Of course, there will be more sort of development happening, I hope, in Innisfil, that will populate the area to provide further justification for this development. But this development is based on a transit and a traffic report from the county, Simcoe County, of over 13,000 vehicles passing by in front of this property. And I believe that providing drive-through services to many of these commuters would be a great service to many of the residents of Innisfil. That's all.
Thank you very much. Again, we're not here to debate, as particularly planning matters. We're here to listen to your delegation, and we appreciate that very much. And my last comment would be that we very, very much appreciate our staff's opinions. Always, we always listen to what our staff have to say, but we're here for a reason. If we were always going to agree with our staff, they wouldn't need us here. We're the voice of the community as well, and that's why we are elected to be here, as much as we respect always our staff's opinions. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we'll carry on after I have a mover and a seconder, please, to receive this delegation tonight regarding staff item C.1. That would be Deputy Mayor Fowler and Councillor Constantine. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We'll now go on to our consent list and resolve to Committee of the Whole. Could I please have a mover and a seconder to resolve to Committee of the Whole? Councillor Saunders, Councillor Ices, all those in favor? That is carried. So the first item brought forward on was C1, which was deferred by Councillor Drodge. Councillor Drodge.
Thank you, Your Worship. My seconder is Deputy Mayor Fowler. I'm not sure there's much more to say about this. We've just had a pretty big debate about it already. I would like to move this forward and deny the sale of Old Yonge Street, and I don't think there's much more to discuss about it unless my fellow councillors have anything else to say.
Councillor Ices.
I do have a question for staff. This property is a commercial property, and it had a restaurant on it before. If this motion gets defeated and that road is not part of that property, is there anything stopping the applicant from proceeding with a site plan agreement to put a restaurant or multiple restaurants on this property?
Director Lee.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Through to Councillor Ices. No, as the staff report indicates, there is a site plan process that is already underway. The applicants had indicated that the access to Old Highway 11 was a vital component of that, but they are still in a site plan process, and with a decision of council either to dispose of or not dispose of, they will then have all of their technical comments, and they can relook at their next submission under the site plan, which is a staff process.
Thank you. Seeing no other, Deputy Mayor?
I would like to ask that this be a recorded vote for the record, please.
Madam Clerk, if you could let me know when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. Are we ready for the vote? Councillor Zanella?
No.
Mayor Dolan?
Opposed.
Deputy Mayor Fowler?
Nay.
Councillor Waters?
Opposed.
Councillor Richardson?
Opposed.
Councillor Droge?
Opposed.
Councillor Constantine?
Opposed.
Councillor Ices?
Opposed.
Councillor Saunders?
Opposed.
The motion is defeated unanimously. And if we could have a motion to receive the report, unless council has any other motions they wish to put forward.
Thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Councillor Droge, Councillor Zanella. Any comments or questions on a motion to receive? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Now we'll move to item C11, and that was pulled by Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I have Councillor Saunders as my seconder. So I pulled this mostly because of this item was on the agenda last meeting, and council sent it back to staff. I wanted to get some more information about the changes that were implemented since that time from staff. Looking through the report, it talks about the increase in green space around some of the snow areas to satisfy some of these needs that we are looking for in Stroud. But perhaps I could ask staff to elaborate on that some more.
Director Lee or Mr. Montgomery?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Through to Councillor Ices. So as the staff report noted, there were essentially 3 areas as we captured them of issues that had been brought up at the last council meeting. So additional parkland green spaces, the drainage issues that then tied to the elevations, and then the retaining walls. So subsequent to the last council meeting, there were follow-up discussions with the developer in terms of options. They were in attendance at the meeting, so they heard very clearly what council's concerns were. And the intent of the staff report that was before you tonight with the updates is where there were some revisions made to that. I think what we wanted from a staff perspective, council to understand is there are some limitations in terms of the official plan designation on the property. So it does require a density requirement from 25 to 35. It's a higher density requirement. So the application as proposed is at a density of 27. So in order to incorporate additional parkland into the property, they would likely be below that density requirement and would not be in compliance and conformity with the official plan. It's also important to understand that this is a condominium development. And so when we're looking at parkland and green spaces, while there are some suggested provisions in terms of the snow storage areas as green spaces during the better months of the year, they are private spaces. And so the staff recommendation continues to be that we acquire cash in lieu of parkland that would be put into public community spaces within the community. But the applicant did propose that the snow storage areas, which were to be grassed areas, not paved areas, would be utilized for green space within the proposed development. There is also a dry stormwater pond area. So typically, unless it's raining, it would appear as sort of an open green space area, and they are looking at potentially connecting through the two snow storage areas and the stormwater pond that's in the center. There may be an ability to sort of connect those with a walkway through the stormwater block so that they are able to provide some green space for the development. They are also looking at, as part of that, that they would incorporate within those snow storage areas potentially some benches. As we've noted, this is subject to a site plan process, which is delegated to staff. So those types of design elements would be factored into the site plan and the site plan agreement in the future.
Anything else, Councillor Ices?
Yeah, just, I know a lot of residents have voiced different things about this development, but the main issue as I see it is the density numbers that we don't have any control over, that kind of limits any further parkland being able to put into this project. Is that what I'm kind of hearing out of this?
So through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Ices, correct. The official plan designation on the property requires a density between 25 and 30 units per hectare, and they're proposing 27 units per hectare. So to remove additional units from the proposed development and achieve parkland, they would be below that 25 units per hectare requirement and would not conform with the town's official plan requirements.
So just maybe getting back to the green spaces that we talked about in the snow areas, the diagram in the report obviously wouldn't show anything different. So where would the design work for some of those enhancements? Where would that, when or how would that happen?
Through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Ices. So you're correct. The drawing that's in the staff report is the draft plan of subdivision condominium that shows essentially the blocks of what would occur. But the detailed design would be done as part of that future subdivision and site plan process. And then those details would be identified in those drawings that would be approved by the town and reflected in future agreements.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. I have three comments to make and questions. First of all, the green spaces to be used for snow storage during the wintertime. Are there any issues around salt contamination in terms of those areas, in terms of if you're planning on using a green space during the summertime, more than likely it's going to die because of all the salt? And is there any concern with salt contamination in terms of groundwater when you're going to be doing that year after year after year?
Through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Waters. So the areas that were identified for snow storage were intended to be landscape. They were not intended to be paved areas as identified through the functional servicing and the drainage reports. Through the detailed design, Lake Simcoe would be involved and the engineering team would be looking at issues in terms of infiltration and concerns from that perspective as part of the final approvals.
Thank you. My next question has to do with when we get these types of developments and density, where there's mandated density which we have to meet, is there any conversation, like it says, would it have been better to put a 6-story condo with lots of green space around it as opposed to the variety of housing that we got? So if green space is an issue, do we ever have that conversation in terms of saying, well, we would like to have green more space? Would you reconsider, a condo that has 40 residents as opposed to 33 they're getting now? So just in terms of different types of density, that might provide a little more green space for the neighborhood.
So through you, Mayor Dolan, to Councillor Waters, in most applications, there are conversations with town staff, planning staff, in terms of the proposed application, how it achieves the density, how it fits within the community, recognizing that provincial policies do encourage intensification, higher densities, range of housing. So we have to consider how we're achieving all of the provincial policy requirements, including those that are in our town official plan, and how we balance that with the existing community and the proposed development. So in most applications, I would say there's always conversations about what the development looks like. In this particular case, I think it's also important to recognize there were previous permissions for this property that were actually at a higher density than what is being proposed today.
Okay. Thank you. And one final question. I was actually in Stroud for dinner tonight, went to Tim Hortons, had one of their famous pizzas. Okay, I won't say more. But I noticed that the streetscape in Stroud is mostly plazas. There's 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 plazas in there, and it looks like they're planning another plaza. And I'm just wondering, is that the type of streetscape we want to maintain in Stroud, or is there a different vision for Stroud?
So, Councillor Waters, I would say the official plan gives us a bit of a guide in terms of where we want to go, but we also have to recognize that there are a number of those are established and have been historically over time. So as the commercial block on this property is proposed to be developed through the site plan process, then town staff can review what that looks like. We do have limitations, though. There used to be provisions in the Planning Act that allowed you to consider, the facade, the amenities, but all of those permissions were removed from the Planning Act. So the town and staff have limitations on what we can look for in terms of the architectural controls and what that particular commercial block would look like.
Thank you very much.
Other questions or comments on this item? I have 2. So the walkway that travels up through the 2 existing homes on Shearing Crescent, is it existing now? Is that walkway existing now, and is it used frequently? I'm getting a nod from someone who lives in Stroud, so I'm getting a yes. I guess the one legitimate concern that I heard from, not that all concerns aren't legitimate, but the one that I could see happening is parking all over Shearing Crescent overnight and then walking through this walkway because there's not going to be enough parking on this site. And I just wondered if there's thought about, I don't like to think taking the walkway away seems not the right thing to do, but I also see that as being a concern, providing all that parking on Shearing and creating a much busier walkway than is there right now, which we all know upsets the 2 adjacent long-term landowners that live next to it. And I don't know if I can get an answer to that, but go ahead, Director Lee.
Mayor Dolan, we'd probably want to take that back, just given the existing walkway that already exists in the community, and the intent was to provide sort of that connection from the commercial block within this development, so it does provide that sort of active transportation through the community. We can certainly take the concern. We saw those in some of the comments that were received, and we can take that back with the developer.
Thank you. And my final comment is, I guess, based on the last time this came to council and deferring it back to staff, and the expectation, I guess, from the residents of Stroud that we can sit here and say no, and the whole thing goes away and it stays afield for another 20 years. We can't. We can say no, and it will go to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and it will come back unappealable, and the decision made by the Ontario Land Tribunal, perhaps more density, not less. So while I know that the residents of Stroud are going to see this as a kind of a cop-out, really I think it's a better the devil you know than the devil you don't, and have your own council have influence and your own staff have influence on what's going to be there, regardless of somebody who has never been to Stroud before and sits on Ontario Land Tribunal. So those are my comments. And I see nobody else, so we'll call the vote. And all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And next we'll go to item C12, which I asked Councillor Saunders to pull on my behalf. You'll second it? So it's moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Drodge. So I'm just going to ask a couple of questions because I'm not sure I've read it, if I just missed it in the report. So there's a number of buildings on the property, but only one is being designated heritage on the property, not the balance of them.
Through you to members of council, yes, it is the heritage property in question would be the guest house, which is the one building. There are a number of outbuildings on the property, including a barn and another small cottage. They are not part of the designation. It's just specifically the guest house that's pictured on the recommendation report.
Thank you. And all of the other buildings then would be granted a demolition permit. And the property, do we know how large it is?
But don't have the actual size of the property. I can certainly get that for you. But the designation, because the other buildings are not included in the heritage attributes of the potential cultural heritage value statement, they would be potentially eligible for demolition, but they would require additional council approval.
Thank you. I can support this because, where we've had issues in the past is with a large parcel of property like this, and the designated home is smack dab in the center of the parcel, whereas this is, I think I was fairly close to the highway, if I'm not, or not to the highway, but to the 25th Side Road, and it's the one property, so I can support that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Our farm has cut hay on that property for, it's not now, but it has in the past. So if I go by farmable, it's probably about 40 acres, so it may be a little bigger than that. I can support this as well. It's your old farmhouse with, as it shows in the report, with definitely charming attributes, but my concern is, there's tenants in there, and the property is declining, and we see that with a lot of our historical properties, that neglect kind of kicks in, and over time we don't have much left. So I guess that's my concern. How do we keep these properties historically significant when we have owners that don't live there?
Mr. Jacobs?
So the town does have a property maintenance bylaw that does have a substantive heritage property component to it. So that is something that should there be concerns about the current condition of the property, that the town does have, as far as compliance, does have provisions within our property maintenance bylaw to address situations like that, to avoid demolition by neglect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Feller?
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the reasons I want to support this so greatly is that we had this discussion at the Heritage Committee meeting, and this particular farmland was farmed by for 35 years by James and Susanna Guest. And the fact is, like, they've spread through many of the numerous families in Innisfil, the Wallace, the Warnica, the Greaves, the Souls. Like, the house itself has history. And the nature of the build of the house makes it a rare building, even among the heritage properties we have here. So, I mean, if the rest of the property gets demolished, that's perfectly fine. Like, that holds no intrinsic value towards the heritage value. This property, this piece of land is fine, but the house itself, that's what we need to save. So that's why we want to list the property. we can work through what goes and what stays after the fact, but this is too valuable to lose.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. With this designation, does the house have to stay where it is, or can it be moved, as we did with the walk-up house?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Waters, potentially, yes, it could be relocated within the subject lands or if on another site. So yes, there would be potentially the opportunity to move the property. To be honest, there would have to be. I would recommend an assessment of the property to see that it's in the condition to move. But designation would not prohibit the movement of the property within the subject lands or to another site.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this recommendations?
Oh, Your Worship, sorry, I just have one point, and thank you to Director Lee for providing this information. The property is 24 acres.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All those in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Now we'll have our rise recommendation, please, moved by Councillor Drodge and Councillor Zanella. All those in favor? That is carried. And now we'll consideration of adoption of the recommendations into Committee of the Whole, moved by Councillor Icey, seconded by Councillor Saunders. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, we'll go to notices of motion. We have not received any notices of motion this evening, and so we will go to announcements. Are there any announcements? There is the one on the screen that you'll see. We're doing a ward boundary review and a council composition review, and we're having a public open house on Thursday, September the 19th. If you'd like to come out to the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library and learn more about this process. We've learned a lot about getting people out to elections. Now we want to make sure that the wards are fair and equitable. Announcements. Ward 1. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Even though it's summer still, it's time for the Innisfil Spartans to start exhibition hockey. Next Friday, August 23rd at 7 p.m. They have their first exhibition game, and then on the 28th at 7 p.m. as well at the Innisfil Rec Center. And they're also looking to get some season ticket holders if you're interested.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ward 2. Councillor Constantine.
Sorry, none, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Ward 3. Councillor Richardson.
This coming weekend at Moon Cafe is the second annual Moon Olympics. Our family participated last year, and it was lots of fun. So if you're around this weekend, you should head out. On August the 20th is Music in the Park at Town Square with 89 Clicks, and Miss Ritchie's Kitchen food truck will be there. September the 14th is the annual Maker Fest at the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library, followed by the Harvest Dinner by the Rotary. Make sure you reach out to the Rotary to get your tickets. I believe that the early bird pricing goes up as of Friday, I think that's on Friday, is when the early bird pricing changes. And then looking forward to on September 10th at at Town Square as well is 93 North, the last one of our Music in the Square, where again, Miss Ritchie's Kitchen will be there, as well as Polar Tropic Fruit, which sounds pretty cool. And then just looking forward as the kids are heading back to school, that October 25th, the short story contest, the entry date, it closes. So if your kids have been writing some stories over the summer, you need to get those entries in before October 25th.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ward 4.
Thank you, Your Worship. Only one item. On August 27th, there's Music in the Park with Carol and Leo, an acoustic performance, and Miss Ritchie's Kitchen will be there as well to keep us well fed while we're being entertained. Thank you.
Councillor Zanella. I have nothing. Nothing. Councillor Saunders has nothing. Councillor Drodge.
Thank you, Your Worship. On August 17th, the Guildford United Church is doing a steak dinner. That's giving you a steak, baked potato, coleslaw, corn, and pie, and that's for $25. And on August 18th, the Cookstown Classic Car and Truck Show will be at the Georgian Steam Grounds from 10 to 2 p.m. And I apologize, I'll be on my way to Amos, so I won't be able to attend.
Thank you. I already asked the Celts if they could deliver my steak dinner to Ottawa, but unfortunately I got a no. No. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Not much, just all this mention of Miss Ritchie reminded me that I was dutifully and graciously invited to their wedding. Miss Ritchie got married to the love of her life, Theo, recently at the end of July, and it was an incredible ceremony, and I was very, very appreciative to be there. And I know the mayor has a new announcement that she's champing at the bit to present to everybody, so I'll give her the floor.
Thank you so much. Lots, and I'm not going to go through them all. It's a very busy summer. We might not have had any council meetings, but we sure had a lot of things to celebrate. So one of the things I wanted to say is congratulations to Anna Goldsmith, who won first place at a singing competition in Knoxville, Tennessee last month, and right now she's in England competing again. So one of these days we're all going to get to say, I knew her when, because she's really going places. I'd also like to thank all of council for attending many events this summer, lots of celebrations, and invite you to join the, on September the 4th, we'll be raising the childhood cancer flag here at the town of Innisfil at 2 p.m. And yes, my big announcement is that I now have got a promotion. I've gotten a much bigger title than mayor. It's called Grandma. So I have a 2-week and 3-day-old grandchild, and her name is Mila, and it is just the best thing ever. So those are my announcements. Anything from staff, Mr. Dershow? Seeing nothing? Then we'll go to confirmation bylaw and adjournment at 9:12 p.m. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Drodge. All those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you again in September for our next council meeting. And everybody, safe travels to Ottawa.